Give us your initial reaction to these numbers. They are even worse than expected, over 700,000 lost.
David, it's good to be back with you. And the numbers that we see today and the numbers that we saw yesterday also really reflect the impact on working Americans of the public health decisions we're having to make to put our economy in large parts of the country on pause for a while. And so, yes, a loss of 700,000 payroll jobs in a month is very steep. And it's important to know, too, that this is just the beginning of the cut in jobs, because the survey we do just captures the first half of the month, really. That was when job losses were just beginning. We know it got steeper as March went on, unfortunately.
And this comes on the heels of 10 million people filing jobless claims over the last 2 weeks, as it were. We have economists now predicting that we could have as many as 20 people unemployed before we hit the nadir. Is that consistent with what you're seeing?
David, I'm going to refrain from giving a sort of a precise guess where we may land. Let me emphasize a couple things. First, we know that we're going to continue to see substantial numbers of people filing for unemployment, and we're going to see some more significant job loss numbers in our next month's report. It's just part of the strategy that's been adopted as a matter of public health. The second point I'd make is that the cause of this is very different than the cause of job losses we've seen in the past. This is a purposeful short-term strategy, and that gives me some optimism for how we come out of this. We came into it quickly. I think if we're disciplined on public health measures right now, we can get out of this quickly.
I certainly want to talk about getting out of it. All of us want to get out of it, no question. But before we do that, the numbers we've seen so far, what sectors are particularly hard hit? Is it restaurants? Is it small businesses? Can you tell?
We don't have full information on that yet, David. It's a great question. What caught my attention in the jobs report we just put out today was there was a very large impact on what we call food services and drinking establishments, restaurants and bars, right? And so there were 700,000 jobs lost in March, and about 415,000 of those were restaurants and drinking establishments. And of course, we remember early on, one of the first firm messages from public health authorities was avoid those places. And so there was a very quick impact there. We did not see a large impact in the reported March numbers in the travel industry, but we know that there's been a major impact there too. So this is still unfolding, and we're certainly mindful it's having a great impact on many Americans. Of course, the president has now signed 3 major pieces of legislation to help people as we work to pull through this.
Exactly. So let's talk about those 3 major pieces of legislation that we hope that it will either turn things around or at least to blunt some of the pain, as I say, and particularly some of the loans to small businesses. As I understand it, today is the day that small businesses can apply. Are we up and running? Do we have a sense of what sort of level of applications are coming in?
And just to elaborate a little bit on those loans, David, because I agree with you that it's a really important part of the relief package that has been put out. These loans to small businesses, and there's $350 billion that's been made available, are intended to help these small companies get through the next couple of months by giving forgivable loans to cover utilities and other costs, and then most importantly, from my perspective, to cover payroll too. And if workers are kept on payroll during this period, these loans are largely forgivable. So it's a way to bridge companies through, but also to bridge employees through by keeping them on payroll rather than on the unemployment rolls. It went live today. There are, as I understand it, applications are coming in. I believe some loans have already been dispersed. It's intended to be a very simplified process. Today's the first day, and I think we'll see greater uptake as we get into next week.
As I understand it, and please correct me, Mr. Secretary, if I'm wrong, these loans, 75% of them are supposed to go for employment, for payroll, in fact, if they are to be forgiven. Do you have some hopes that this might not only reduce the number of people being laid off going forward, but some people might hire back?
Well, yes, and actually, companies that already let people go and want to take these loans can get the sort of full credit for their payroll by bringing people back, and they should know that small companies that recently let people go because of the virus can bring them back on and have the loan cover their payroll. And David, yes, I very much agree that the aim here is to keep that tie between employer and employee during this pause that we have in our economy. As I said, we came into this sharp downturn very differently than we've come into others. It didn't result from economic conditions. It resulted from a very serious health problem we're dealing with. I think we have a better chance of coming out very quickly if we use measures like this. Of course, the legislation the president signed also includes very high unemployment insurance payments to make people whole so that they're not left losing out significantly financially because of conditions that result from no fault of their own, but rather from, again, public safety health measures we're taking. So there are other important things in there, too, including paid leave provisions, which we just started implementing at the Labor Department earlier this week.
And just in closing here, give us a longer-term perspective, Mr. Secretary, if you can. What longer-term effects there might be on the labor market of this? We hope it's going to bounce back, but might it change people's attitudes, employers' attitudes, employees' attitudes going forward? This is a rather traumatic experience for all of us.
Well, let me emphasize first how important it is to follow the public safety, the public health measures that are being urged on us. Discipline now in staying at home, social distancing and the like, is going to help people get back to work and fix the economy more quickly. In terms of long-term changes, David, we'll see. Attitudes toward telework may change. We'll see. Now, I don't know whether they'll get more positive or more negative, but we'll see. But I think the long-term impacts will be less, needless to say, if this pause is shorter. I think the longer it drifts, then the more substantial the long-term impacts on our economy will be, and I don't think that will be for the better.